My name's Greg Fitzpatrick. I'm with Cochrane Supply and Engineering, and I work in business development for IoT and integration. Welcome to Let's Get SaaSy. I can't take credit for that title, but we're going to talk about how to sell software as a service this morning. Got a great panel. I know everyone on this panel, they have a wealth of experience, and they're going to talk to you about their experiences when it comes to selling SaaS and give you guys some information going forward, and you'll know where the resources are when you have questions moving forward in your own particular businesses. I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves, starting down there with Charles.
Good morning, I'm Charles Stuckey. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Neve. My experience is largely in software. I did a software startup. I was at Cisco for 17 years. I led the project to move Cisco into subscriptions while I was at Cisco, among many other projects, and I've been in the prop tech industry since about 2000.
Check.
Thank you. Did you hear that?
Yes.
All right.
Roxette Melanson with Tridium. I'm on the sales team, so I work with national accounts on the Vicon sales side. I've been in this industry since about 2014, so not as long as some of y'all, but long enough to see a lot of changes and learn with the industry.
Eddie Demai, one of the co-founders at Code Labs, similar, I think, to the group here. Just been in and around real estate, startup tech, really my whole career.
And I'm Scott Pape with Long Building Technologies, the business development manager for our controls offering on both construction and aftermarket service.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this presentation. I appreciate you guys participating. One of the things that we've been hearing is how our industry is changing, right? We've talked about AI, we've talked about a lot of things, but we do know that software is very important moving forward. And one of the things I keep hearing thrown around is software as a service, SaaS, and managed services being interchanged. And we know that's not right. And I'm gonna ask you, Charles, what's the main difference between software as a service and managed service? Because I hear them getting used interchangeably a lot.
Yeah, software as a service technically is taking a software application that you used to buy and download, and instead it lives in the cloud. You subscribe to it. The vendor only has to maintain one copy, so it's very efficient for them, and they can make changes more quickly, give you more features. Managed services takes on a broader scope. It might include software, but it also may include other services. It may include multiple elements of software, basically taking business processes that have connections inside your company and saying, let us handle those interfaces to the outside world and connect the swivel chair operations between those and offer that as a service.
So who would own the customer in a SaaS model?
Yeah, in the SaaS model, whoever sells the product has a relationship, but the user develops a relationship with the software and sometimes with the support people at the software company. In a managed service, very clearly the relationships with the managed service provider.
Right. So for systems integrator, and I'll pose this question to you, Scott. So as a systems integrator, would that be an opportunity? Would you consider it an opportunity? Because I know you guys have sold SaaS for years. And when you first started off, did you see it as an issue or an opportunity for systems integrators?
Selling software as a service was really a big shift for us in how we approach the market. And coming from a traditional system integrator lens, we were always selling supervisory software, integration software directly to customers that was deployed on site, like you were saying. And then we were always dealing with these version maintenance issues and licensing issues, timing issues with customers, and then also just obsolescence of software. And so the nice thing is once we were able to start getting some of our customers shifted over to this model of a subscription basis for access to a particular tool set, that the opportunity to really sell value to our customers when it comes to always having the latest and greatest, most secure, up-to-date software, those kinds of things, and feature sets has really helped us sell. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. No, that's great. So for you, Eddie, what kind of conversations need to happen early with the customer, right?
From I guess from a perspective of, like, when you say what kind of conversation, I just want to make sure I'm addressing it.
As far as shifting their mindset, right?
Yeah, I mean, look,
traditional BAS offerings?
yeah, for sure. So I think there's this like blurry line where, you know, people like freak out to tell a client that they're paying some license, whatnot, but like they've been paying license fees forever. I think we're just making it more complex than it needs to be. They've either paid some sort of an annual managed services that is included, some update to a Niagara license or otherwise. Like, it's not, like, I know SaaS sounds like a new thing, but to me, it's not. They've been paying recurring fees of some sort forever. Like, you've included it in something, you've updated some license somewhere, whatever the case may be. So, you know, is it a conversation of like, do the clients sometimes go, oh, what do you mean now I got to pay this recurring thing or the other? I think it's just being a human, explaining it to them, explaining what it means, explaining to them that, hey, with the SaaS model, you're actually, hopefully, always on the latest and greatest. Absent this, you're paying some annual recurring fee, and then I come back to you in 2 years and I tell you, oh, you know, all this hardware with all this gymnastics I sold you a year ago, now we need to upgrade it. Like, here's another $52,000. Like, it's just explaining to them the model, like, what does it mean to be on this model versus that model? And then from a contractor perspective, I think that if you have the right platform you're giving to your clients, that is your best CRM. So like, play that back. Like your CRM where you manage all your clients, the best CRM should be the platform you're actually using to manage your clients' properties, because that communicates the opportunity back to you that you should be monetizing. And I haven't heard very many in this space like think of it that way. It's like this, like, we get so stuck in like, it's SaaS, and what does it mean? Like, it's another fee that they pay, and just explain to them the value that it brings back, and then use it to also transform your business. I think that kind of entire stack has to go together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so for me, because you guys sell different things, three of you are vendors, right? You sell solutions, and we've got an SI up here, a contractor up here. But for you, Charles, why do you think cybersecurity is an easy entry point for SaaS and understanding SaaS and deploying a SaaS model or selling it to your customer?
Yes, security is the most obvious in some ways candidate for a SaaS, because we know that vulnerabilities appear. You may have software that you think is perfectly secure, and somebody discovers a vulnerability, and you need to react quickly and push that update to everybody. So for us, that's a great need, and an ability of SaaS is to push updates, usually without any disruption to your operation. Secondly, in our industry, because you have lots of firmware, in our case, we put a gateway between the outside world, the internet, and your various devices. So we're basically avoiding the need of having to update all that firmware overnight if there's new vulnerabilities, and there's old vulnerabilities in there anyway. But now you ask, well, then that gateway better be up to date. Okay, so that's why we sell it as a SaaS, because that gateway is the thing that's protecting everything else that may not be up to date.
Right. So Roxette, for you, everyone in here, I imagine, deploys Niagara, right? So how could a contractor monetize Niagara, right, using a SaaS model?
So I think the first thing to note when we're talking about SaaS is that it's not a change, right? I think our industry is really scared when we say big change. I think end users, contractors, they don't take to that kindly. So I think when we talk about going from where we are today to a SaaS model, it's an evolution of technology. They're seeing it everywhere else, right? We see it with our phones, with our computers. We're seeing it in just the technology world. And so, you know, that first barrier is like talking about it's not a huge change. We're just adding more on top of what you're already seeing, and we are evolving with the innovation and technology that's happening. So, like, first, I think we just have to get people comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. But did that answer part of the question?
No,
sorry, what was the rest of it?
Absolutely.
Because I wanted to say that before. But as a Tritium perspective, when we're talking about SaaS and all of that, like, for a contractor, right, for that specific persona, we're talking about that recurring revenue model. So one, getting them familiar with that. Building on top of an SMA, right? Everyone's familiar with SMAs. We're all hearing SMAs. So recurring revenue and that SaaS has already been around. It's already been implanted in everything. So now we're building on that. We're talking about, you know, not just cybersecurity. We're not talking about, you know, just that one piece that kind of scares everybody a little bit, but we're talking about tools and features for the engineers, those systems integrators. And then when we're we're talking about an end user, it's a whole different thing we're talking about, right? It's where we're enabling additional tools for them in a way that allows them to pull reports, look at dashboards, look at data, and make better business decisions. So there's a lot of different pieces depending on who we're talking to as like a manufacturer's manufacturer, because we're supporting our OEM channel. So we want to make sure we give all those guys the right tools to build their solutions. The end users, kind of the things they see and can't see. And like, especially with Niagara 5, there's a bunch of engineering things that happen in the back that not everyone is familiar with, but just talking about all those things and helping our customers, explain that to their end users, having them understand it so they know how to sell that recurring revenue, and then also showing them those features that are actually what they're utilizing, right? That they need to see features, they need to be able to use different efficiencies so that they can sell value of that.
Right, so what I'm hearing is mindset, right? It's all about the mindset of selling it. So how did you change the mindset or introduce that mindset, Scott, to your sales team as far as going out and selling the SaaS model?
I'm curious here in the audience, who here is a system integrator? Please raise your hand. Okay, and then of you, how many are selling new construction only without service? Anyone? So everyone here is selling service as well for their control systems? So certainly one of the challenges that we've run into is on the service side of our business, there is that kind of operational expenditure component, right? That OpEx bucket that all of our customers have that we can tap into. So what we did with our service base predominantly to kind of pivot the sales team was, instead of this software as a service that we were offering as used to offer as like a bolt-on, a nice to have. For us, it was an FDD platform that became, fault detection and diagnostics, that became kind of our launching point predominantly into this ongoing SaaS model, as opposed to the SMA model, right? And so for service customers and coming out of that OpEx bucket, it was actually a fairly easy pivot. Train the sales team into, you don't talk to the customers about, well, you have option A, our traditional service. We come out and check the oil and kick the tires and dust off the Jace and move on, right? It's more, this is how we're delivering service. Our service delivery model is utilizing this tool set. The challenge we've still come up against, and I'm actually curious to hear from the three of you, is how do you recommend a system integrator incorporate this into a new construction project? Because when someone's buying something, they're thinking they're not buying a utility, an ongoing thing. Now, I know with Niagara, we've included like an 18-month license on the front end, right? But for us to include anything beyond that, such as your product, right? It's, how are we not pricing ourselves out of a job by including software as a service that the owner isn't even engaged with? We're talking through the construction chain, right? You guys get it? Yes. Does that make sense? Can you answer that?
Wait, can I just,
I want to hear from all of you.
Like, the biggest thing you just said is that you guys are not involved. So like, that to me is like, okay, why aren't you involved? Like, why is there a gap between you and the end user? Like, why? So like Div 25 is a huge thing of what we talk about, right? And that master systems integrator role.
Sure.
So like when I talk to like a GC, they're like, yeah, we would love to be able to talk, like they want to bring everyone to the table. They want to have those conversations. So one, like y'all should always be a part of that conversation. The mechanicals, the controls, easier said than done. I totally get that. But you guys should always be a part of that conversation, because when you're talking to that end user, you're talking to the GC, the mechanical, the architect, the network, IT, like everybody, then they understand that you're not just there to throw some Jaces up there and maybe do some pretty dashboards. They understand that there's more value as a service provider to what you do. And then you're like, hey, we are enabling more things for y'all to have. We're giving you the tools and setting up the plumbing, right? And also we can do all these things. We have an offering that helps you with FDD, with the preventative maintenance, with all that stuff. So you guys should always be a part of that conversation.
Well,
easier said than done. Yes. From someone who doesn't call on owners, engineers, contractors, right? And so when we're bidding 50 jobs a week, across our enterprise, we're not going to be talking to all those owners. We're not going to talk to every church that's building a new church or every dentist that's building a new dentist office, right? I could see certainly we have owner influence on a larger scale. That's what I'm saying. Often I'm finding the SaaS sales model is really more of an aftermarket offering, in my experience. But I'd like to hear on your perspective on new construction.
Well, here's what I want to ask first.
Okay.
How many of you have more than 50% of your work that you're bidding is in the plan and spec market? By a show of hands. Wow. So most of you are doing negotiated work, right? Where it won't show up in the plan and specs. Okay, so that's what I was going to get at. We have to learn how to teach the engineers how to put something that's actually OpEx into the CapEx, right, which is the construction documents. And that's a tall task to get the engineers to understand it, because first...
Or you can continue your statement too, but I have something to say on that. It actually is a pretty big challenge, because the GCs and people run it as a cost basis job to the customer. And the customer,
And our competition's not going to do it.
The customer hires a GC to basically run the job for them. So it's not something that they're in-depthly involved in. And I actually have tried to attack that model from an ownership perspective, to where I have the ownership relationship, and I even have them saying they want to use my company. Yet it's been a big challenge getting that to even get through a bid scenario where I'm getting sole sourced or anything like that, because when you hire a GC, it kind of puts it in their court to meet all the requirements. And so if the end user comes to the GC and says, I have a longevity plan and I want a SaaS model included in this job, then that might be successful, but I don't think we've seen that yet as like an industry-wide model. So it typically is a service later afterthought item, and so it's a pretty big challenge to talk about that, at least initially.
Yeah, but now that a lot of our services are moving to a SaaS model, right, like cybersecurity and things like that, that should be embedded into the construction process and the documents, we need to figure out how to get to the engineers, right? Because depending on how that project is being procured, is it design build? Is it traditional plan and spec? If it's traditional plan and spec and you have a relationship with the owner, then you should champion them putting together owner's project requirements, design guidelines. That's how that stuff gets passed down to the engineers. You see you, Mike? To the engineers, so that it ends up in the construction documents. This is about to turn into a very spirited conversation, so let's go.
I'll expand on what he said. I'm primarily negotiated work, and he's exactly right about the GCs and the engineers. They're too far down the food chain on that decision. That decision comes up on the ownership, CBRE, and that SaaS model needs to be a separate channel completely. You GCs, those bidding, they're all low bid.
That's been my experience as well.
You try to task them with that, you're just, they're just going to throw it back at you. So
the whole construction industry is really not set up to enroll an end user with a utility. Which is essentially, we're talking about a fourth or a fifth utility at this point.
Yeah, so what we did when we heard this feedback from the
construction process, right?
Yeah. Well, also even with TIs, we do a lot of those too. It's all low bid negotiated work, but expand on the...
Yeah, well, when we heard that feedback when we came into this channel, exactly that feedback. And so what we did, we created a couple of shorter term subscriptions to make that cost in that sort of fixed bid, low cost bid low. And then we as we teach and train our channel from what our experience is, we try to encourage them as you get to the end of the project to say, by the way, we invested in this cybersecurity because during the construction project, you can still get attacked. You can also get software placed in the equipment that creates a 0-day attack when you turn it on. Right. And so we've been protecting you from that the whole time during construction, and based on whichever length, it could be short or medium term, you say, we can turn it off. We can run it for another year for you and then turn it off while you go, or I can enroll you in a 3-year subscription for the same service. But to your point, it's a little later after you've already sort of won the bid with the low price, and you can already show them, and we protected you during the construction. So that's the strategy that we're taking.
Right.
We've used the warranty period as the end. So we come and do courtesy checkup on the system after it's turned over.
As a systems
And that's
integrator.
our avenue to get into the end user.
That's what that medium-term subscription is for, is it covers the construction and enough time to do a warranty checkup to create the time for this conversation.
Right. But that's why all those conversations have to happen during the design development phase. And that's why we as an industry, we have to be change agents. We have to make sure we cast a wide net and cover the entire ecosystem. Understand that that entire ecosystem includes the owner, operator, commissioning agent, the architect, the engineer, the CM. We've got to get our arms around that and let them know that the industry is changing. And that's why we do things like this. That's why we promote software as a service and some of the other things like managed services at places like AHR, where the engineers actually come to learn technology and learn the future of the business. So I want to ask you, Eddie, how should SIs package a SaaS offering opposed to the traditional BAS offerings, right? When you're going to sell it as a service.
Yes. So again, I may think of this the wrong way, but it's worked out okay for us. My biggest, I understand. I think the fundamental change that needs to happen is in how we want to run our businesses, and I say we as in the businesses you guys run. If you like you're selling services, but it sounds like you're actually like you're doing the business more as like you need to sell the next project and the next project and the next project because you have to stack it, like the business has to run. Versus looking at your entire service base, looking at, okay, I have just super simple math here. I have 100 buildings that, I have services on and I charge whatever, $10,000 a year for each building. The fear of change that I've noticed is that if you look at that and you go, okay, with this $10,000 model, I get my 30% margin, whatever the margin is. If I make any one change to this, depending on who you report to, or maybe you are the person that other people report to, it's gonna dismantle the company. And the truth is it does not. And I'll tell you why. If you go and you look at that business that you have, those 100 buildings at that $10,000, and you look at the amount of people and how many hours they spend to provide the service you provide today, which, with all due respect, could be a lot better. And you go, okay, I'm going to change my 100 truck rolls that I do every single year to 75. And the reason why is because for the 25 truck rolls that I'm doing, I can do this service virtually. And instead of charging $150 for the 25 truck rolls at average 4 hours, whatever the number is, I can give the client potentially something back. My margin on the virtual service I'm given goes up. That's the change that needs to happen. And then in my opinion, to come back full circle to your question about how do we sell it. Look, guys, our experience is that owners want you to stick with a building. They need you to stick with a building. And the sale, to me, has to be simplified and humanized. And everything we do in this industry is complex. So how do we humanize it? I'm pitching you an SI job, but I'm also going to hold myself accountable. And guess how I do that? I stay with a building. It's still a human relationship piece. We can't get rid of that. No SaaS, no technology, no hardware is going to let us get rid of that, and it shouldn't. But if you build that relationship on the front end that says, hey, here's my price, get your operations team involved so we can have a conversation because, well, what do we know about construction? The people that are doing construction, they're just trying to hit their budgets. And then it gets turned over to operations and they hate each other. So be the change that they need. Bring your operations team into this conversation. And look, if the GC doesn't get it, I promise you they will get it. We've done this and we've lost jobs only to come back 45 days later and say, fuck, I need you guys back because it's a complete disaster.
I love it. So let me ask you this, Scott. How do you structure, when you guys started on your journey of selling SaaS, right? How did you guys make your change and start structuring your contracts differently? Yeah.
Well, we had to incorporate the software itself, obviously, and the licensure and everything else. And there's a significant lift, so to speak, from a price standpoint. But there's also a correlating value that goes along with that to show the customers. Yeah. So the ROI is really self-evident in these products, particularly with a strong FDD solution. Right now, our the way we approached transitioning our customer base was like what I had already kind of told you. If you give customers an option, most of them, in my experience, are going to take the cheaper option. They don't have the OpEx dollars unless you have a real champion at the owner level who's really keyed in on energy or these kinds of things. But most of the buildings we run into today aren't operated. They're just kind of like managed and wrangled, right? There's no active operators within the building. And so no one's really looking at the dashboards. No one's really operating the system. And so what we had to do with our team is, rather than giving customers an option, believe it or not, similar to what Tritium did to all of us with SMAs, it was like, you're going to do this. We took a similar approach with our customers. This is our service delivery model. If you want to do business with Long and have us as your service provider, this is how we do it. And then they're like, okay. And so where we are, I could just kind of like fast forward to where we are today. So we started this journey about 4 or 5 years ago, and where we are today is 75% of our service base right now is utilizing an FDD model. 75%. And, you know, the customer retention is even higher. The customer satisfaction is even higher. I'd say the larger challenge that I've seen with all of this was not the sales team. Sure, there has to be buy-in and they have to understand what they're selling and how to sell it. It is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge for us was how to support that operationally on the back end. And that was a big culture change as well.
Right. So Charles, let me ask you this. Cybersecurity, right? That's an easy way for SIs to have an entry point into the SaaS model. So for you, how can SIs turn just remote access into recurring revenue?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to introduce SaaS and managed services around security and secure remote access is what we're talking about primarily. But it's also firewall. It's basic cybersecurity too. Gives an opportunity to talk about, like you did with FTD, that the value of software that's always up to date, of data that's flowing to the cloud, that you're pulling data, that the operational value creates real benefit for the customer. So you can demonstrate, they'll be aware of that because they use, as you said, they use SaaS with Yardi and they use SaaS with other things. So the IT department knows that SaaS is a good idea.
Right.
So the engineers sometimes you're bidding to may not know that, but cybersecurity gives you a way to say, look, that you know this has to be up to date. By the way, let's talk about all the advantages of keeping things up to date and cloud connected. And cloud, people used to think cloud was insecure, and it's like, actually, do you hear about Amazon getting hacked? No, it's everybody else, right? So that, I think that opens the door, but you do have to expand it to this applies to other operations, and everyone in IT has already gone to SaaS. They've realized these benefits.
Right.
And if you want to, and we provide a lot of help with the conversation between OT and IT. Pointing out that the IT guys are already there really helps with the conversation.
Right. So this is for any of you guys. Roxette, you want to add some color to that, or you good?
No, we're good.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So what's one of the biggest objections that you guys have had while approaching SIs and trying to get them to adopt to the new SaaS model and selling services? Who wants to take that one?
Well,
I know we all didn't say yes.
It is a different sell. It is really a different sell. And we have not found the easy button how to include more of the aftermarket stuff with construction bids. Mm-hmm. So it really ends up being an end user owner direct sell. Right. And then from there, the objections fall away. Because again, like we've all acknowledged, right? We deal with SaaS on a daily basis, whether it's, Spotify or Netflix or the heated seats in my BMW, right? I mean, there's a lot of these, I don't have a BMW, but I've heard about this, right? That, that people have SaaS associated with certain features that are built into things we're buying that are enabled through a SaaS model. Right. So
which typically includes hosting, right? So Roxette, how should SIs think about hosting services, right? Because that's one of the other things that's moving forward, right?
So again, this kind of goes into the whole MSI thing, right? Like the evolution of a systems integrator. You've got to, one, stay up to date with what the technologies are, where the industry is moving. Yes, of course, there's going to be a huge chunk of that that's going to remain as is, right? We still see pneumatics out there, and there's end users that aren't going to change the way they think, right? Maybe until there's like a change in leadership or whatever. But when we're looking at hosting services, right, we're thinking, okay, what do we operationally have to do to set that up? So you can have all these great technologies available to you, but if you're one, they don't understand how they work, and two, aren't taking the time out to learn about them, train yourself, and figure out where to start, then you can't sell them, right? And the people that can sell them are going to win those jobs. And like before, we were talking about the relationships, right? Yes, like maybe you don't have a relationship with that GC, go make a relationship with that GC. Like everything is relationship based. A lot of the time, of course, it's going to be like whatever products are the best or whatever services are the best. But if someone doesn't know who you are, how are they ever going to like understand your business and want to promote and do business with you? So it is hard, and I understand that from systems integrators' perspectives, it can be difficult to have the bandwidth to do all of these things. But when I see and I talk to systems integrators, you know, up in the Northeast or even south in Texas, right, where I'm at, they're investing in these things. They're investing in building out their teams, building out the operations to learn how to do the technologies. I'll go out with systems integrators and we'll go meet with GCs. We meet with engineers. Like they have built these relationships. And so then when they're building out or learning about hosting services or newer technologies, they have customers they can go to with that. So with hosting, right, figure out the infrastructure, learn about the services, learn about how to set up your own cloud services or your own cloud. Figure out if you want to use someone else's cloud, if you're going to learn about that customer's cloud, if you're going to do virtual machines, if you're going to run containers. Like take the time to invest in the technologies. It might be hit or miss with some of them, but then at least you're learning about everything out there. You're becoming more intelligent, and then you're able to support more intelligently for the different customers you have.
Yeah, so Eddie, what does that architecture look like? Because Roxette just gave us a mouthful, right, as far as how to set it up. Right, yeah. I love it. No, I love it. That's why I want to ask Eddie. So what does a BAS SaaS-ready architecture look like? Just from a very basic standpoint, so these guys have an idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to like, I mean, even if you listen to us on this panel, I think if I'm an owner that has a large portfolio, I start freaking out hearing all this stuff, and I'll tell you why. Because like we're already like, to me, it's already complex. Virtual machines, cloud, SaaS here, this solution there, like it is complex and it is scary. Like if I'm an owner, it's scary. Like, what do you offer? Package it nicely and tightly. Explain to the owner that includes the update, the upgrade, the latest and greatest, the service you provide to them. Explain the value of the service. Understand their business model, because really, like, that's really what matters at the end of the day. It's what matters to the real estate owner: net operating income. How can I help you maintain whatever your net operating income goal is via the services that I provide? And I think the minute that like these proposals have like 17 line items in them, you lost them, because they don't know the space like you guys know the space, right? But they want to know that they're in safe hands. They want to know that working, I mean, Scott, I think you hit the nail on the head where you said like working with Long, like this is the service we provide. If you want to work with us, this is the service and here's the value. And I think if you believe in the value that you provide, I think that comes across, right? It's like, this is what we provide. Here's my 7 references you can call and ask, and here's where we save money, and here's the value that we bring back to you. Because real estate is all about predictable costs. Right. So how do I build a model where the end user feels like it's $1 a foot, whatever the number is, and you're not going to go over it? And how are you not going to go over it? Is because you're going to use this service and this tech stack plus the service, right? Because you're selling both, to make sure that their costs don't explode. If and when there's a need to extend, the lifetime of a piece of hardware or whatnot, you have the means to do that until their budgets hit, right? Like this is, to me, this is where we see like a ton of But this is at least how we approach it, and our partners that we work with is and we spend a ton of time with a lot of companies like you guys to literally walk through this model. Because we have hundreds of different clients. And once you get in, by the way, with this model, you become, to your point earlier, you become the standard. They can do $1 million general contractor, whatever jobs, and they can go bid it everywhere else. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to come right back to that standard. I'll give you one client example, Bedrock in Detroit, Cochrane and us, they're a joint client of ours. At Bedrock, you're going to meet, they have a standard. Their standard is that every TI, every new construction has to meet this standard. And that standard for us is our platform. You can go buy whatever you want underneath, 1 million different vendors, contractors, do whatever you want. They're checking you via this standard they've set, period, end of story. And I think you guys are the intelligent backbone of this space. How do we just tweak our services in a way that hits them where it matters the most, which is their pockets?
Yeah, so do you guys feel like SIs will get left behind if they don't adopt the SaaS model here soon?
1,000%. But I think SIs are adopting it. I think it's just how do we all come together to make sure that the messaging that we all want to get to the end user is a message that makes sense, because I do think SIs are adopting it. I think they're getting there, but again, it's a complex industry, and we know it's complex, and we know why it's complex, and there's good reason why it's complex. But I think it's on us to simplify it for the end user, who's the investor, and all they care about is that their tenants are happy, their buildings are running smooth, their costs are predictable, and imagine going to them, their budgets are in September. What happens? I mean, I've done this in my previous life. I used to manage a ton of real estate. I'd go to our team and I'd go, look, I have to work on my budget. I'd look at my last year's costs, and then I'd go at all the engineers and the property managers, whatever. And they're running around, they're calling all you guys. It's what should we budget for next year? And you're throwing some number there that is kind of safe and it's going to be okay. Imagine, instead of that, imagine going to them proactively and saying, hey, look, here's the data that says this is what we need to work on. And if we work on this, this is what it means. Your energy costs go slightly lower, your maintenance costs can go slightly lower, whatever. But that's why I say it really requires a business transformation that I personally don't think is actually that hard to do. I think it's just believing that this is the way.
What you're selling.
Yeah,
right.
This is the way.
Believing in the process. Charles, you got some color to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and from the experience we've had, the idea that the system integrator leads with managed services, and inside of that, they have SaaS products is the right transition, because that keeps the system integrator in a strong position. But the benefit of you as the system integrators adopting SaaS is that you're getting the support from the vendor. You're getting the constant updates. You're getting 24/7 support. And so you can simplify your operation by picking the right set of SaaS vendors that you want to use within your service offering. So the benefits we've been talking about of SaaS accrue to you when you adopt the managed service provider approach. And a couple of the objections that we've seen, going back to an earlier question, I was thinking through, we handled the price one. That's always way, the entry price on a construction project. Some of the others have been, we want to personalize this offering. If we are the managed service provider, we want it to show up with our name on it. And how many of you have heard of the term vibe coding? Anyone else heard that? It correlates with age, I can see. But the idea that you can sort of put little veneers of software on top of things that you're buying from SaaS vendors is very much becoming a reality just by talking to an LLM. You probably have a session on that later today, Scott, in this very room. We're going to have someone that's a good question on that. But that's one of the things. People want to be able to personalize, and it has been a challenge with SaaS because it's it comes the way it comes. But that's changing. And then the other thing is people still want training. So even if you're the managed service provider, they still want to have a relationship with the software, the users, and so they'll expect some training. We worked with Cochrane. Cochrane actually uses our platform in some of their training, including for Tritium products. So that we're not trying to take that away. But if you can sort of get the cost, wrap it up, take the responsibility as the MSP, allow some customization, and make people feel confident as the end users will still get the training, then I think it is overall a much better package.
All right. So we did say that cybersecurity was an easy entry point, right? So how many of you have heard of the term zero trust? Okay, so everyone understands zero trust. Charles, could you talk a little bit about zero trust, how that figures into a SaaS model, managed services, and how to get over some of those hurdles that you guys have experienced, not just cost, but just the concept itself.
Yeah.
As far as getting away from
Yeah,
VPNs.
just to pull. How many of you have ever had an Amazon Web Services account? I'm also curious about that. Again, correlates with age, some cases. But I'll tell you, when you log on to AWS, I can assure you, you don't log on to their network. You log into your services. And so what Zero Trust is bringing that model to other systems and applications, which is you give users the right to log on to the network, but it's not actually the network. It's a gateway that presents them with the services that they're allowed to see. And so that's why it's Zero Trust, which is if you haven't been authorized to see anything, then you see nothing. And your authorization might only last a day. I can also revoke it at any time. But the benefit of taking that to the cloud, what's interesting is it's based on your identity as opposed to you're holding something. We had Fred Gordy, many of you may know who he is, but he was at a conference with us last month pointing out that if you have 100 buildings, there's 7,000 techs who have passwords to something in your building and another 12,000 who don't work at those companies anymore. So actually passing out tokens for people to use to log on to things is not Zero Trust. So what you want is it's based on the identity, including where they work, and when they don't work there anymore, you revoke it. That requires, like security, constant update. So it works much better as a cloud model. The identity is based on current events, current employment, current ability to prove that you're who you are. And so Zero Trust works a lot better in a cloud connected model.
Okay, so I'm an SI. I've gone to my customer, they've pushed back, they've told me, like, hey, I've got a VPN, right? The owner has told them, we have VPNs. How do they get around that hurdle and educate the owner, if it's not on the IT side, but on the facility side, as far as how valuable Zero Trust is?
Yeah, well, if it's an owner, you can point them to all the leading authorities, CISA, the Real Estate Cyber Consortium that ULeads works with the government agency who's asking them to get off of VPNs, right? Because a VPN is like the right to come into the hotel. Once you're in, you can go wherever you want. And it's not quite true, by the way. If you have a VPN and the network inside the building is super well architected and properly segmented, then you're safe. The problem is buildings don't have super well architected networks, and so when you give a VPN and access to one system, you might accidentally be giving them backdoors to other systems. So the government, all the agencies are asking people to stop using VPNs and go to what I described as this cloud model, Zero Trust, based on who they are and what role they have. And so if it's an owner, it's an easy lift because you say, everyone's asking you to stop doing VPNs. If it's not an owner, then you're going to have to just explain to them, hey, the best security is cloud security, that you don't see the network, you pass out passwords based on role and can even be time and place, and we have the simple technology to help you do that.
Awesome. So, Scott, your most successful SaaS offering in your career from a project standpoint. And Eddie,
we're moving in that direction.
And Eddie, you're next. Same question. Your most successful SaaS offering.
Most successful SaaS offering by far to date is with FDD platform Clockworks Analytics, who's here at the conference. We've got several people from Clockworks here in the room. They've been an incredible partner, and after trying to deploy an effective FDD solution for decades, kind of going back to the early 2000s to date myself a little bit, the promise of FDD and what it could deliver, but that the back end implementation was always so brute force and challenging, and digesting all the information was near impossible. Clockworks has made it super easy. And so our most successful deployment to date is we were just awarded a contract with Denver Public Schools right here in this locale to do the entire school district, which is over 250 buildings, to deploy FDD on.
Nice. Same question for you, Eddie, but from a customer perspective.
So I honestly, I it's hard for me to like call out, a specific customer and say like this was, the easiest or most successful or whatnot. And the reason why is so like we were founded in about 8+ years ago. So we have like virtually zero churn. We've never lost a client. We've never had a client that's worked with us that hasn't grown. So it's super hard for me to pick any one client because
How about lessons learned?
God, how much time do you have?
That'll get him.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll get him to talk.
I'd say the biggest one that maybe is relevant to this group is that, and I think we've touched on it in some way, shape, or form here, is this idea of like client success. So you need them to adopt the tools you're giving them, and investing in that I think is super, super important, even though it may feel like, hey, there's 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. But I think long term, they're adopting your tools and you're building a relationship where they now, like you're one and the same. You're not really a contractor. It's not a transactional relationship, but it's more like your buildings are my buildings. So we, early on when we first started, you're just kind of building the company. We didn't have a traditional client success team per se. Yeah. We all spent time being client success to some extent, and then a couple of years into it, we said, hey, like we need a dedicated client success team that is going to make sure that all these things that we're constantly kicking out, our clients are taking, they're adopting, they understand. Where the relationship doesn't feel transactional, because I think that's where things fail. So I'd say the biggest lesson is just, have a dedicated client success team for whatever services it is you're providing that checks in on clients and makes sure that, the client feels like you're part of their team versus like I call you and every time I call you, my cash register rings.
Right. Roxette, lessons learned through your journey.
With like selling SaaS.
Yes.
So I think the biggest thing is, again, kind of that mindset, not framing it as a way that it's a huge change and you have to stop everything you're doing and redo everything from scratch. It's building upon that, right? So the biggest lesson learned, I would say, is from my perspective, is just kind of building the carriage as we're riding along. So, like sometimes people are expecting from a manufacturer to have a full-blown product, everything at 1,000, ready to go, ready for like to take over the world. And manufacturers aren't perfect, right? No one is. And so sometimes just setting those expectations and fully letting people understand what we're offering and what the actual roadmap is, and understanding that like where we are now is building what we're going to continue to do, is one of the biggest lessons learned. I think that there's ways to do that well and ways that it could be better, and I think that's from my point of view.
Thank you. Charles.
Yeah, I think
I want you to start with a success story first.
Success story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have some extremely large customers. We do have customers with 100 building portfolios, and some of our favorite stories are where they started with security and remote access, and then they realized we kind of have an edge of cloud platform. We can start rolling out applications into that same platform, and we don't have to go back to IT and reauthorize all the security because we're already established, like you do when you set up AWS. You establish this is a secure environment. I have different roles for different people, but they're all considered secure. So we now have customers, big customers like Kilroy and BGO, who are rolling out applications and being able to use the same platform to pull data, feed it to an application. We have people who are working with code same way, using the same infrastructure. It's established, it's secure, the owner understands it, and now I can start adding services much more fluidly because I don't have to deploy new servers and get those all installed. So for those are our best successes. One of the things I think it's worth explaining to people, and we hit on it here a little bit, which is SaaS is not I'm going to charge you the price of the software every year, and so you're going to pay now 5-10 times as much as if you just sweated it out. What people who are new to it may not understand is the cost for the vendor goes way down by going to SaaS. When I was at Cisco, I discovered at one point we had 6,000 versions of our operating system deployed around the world. You can imagine the cost. I can tell you it was over 5,000 engineers that it took to maintain that software. And you contrast that to someone who runs a SaaS, they have one, or they usually have one in dev and one in staging and one in production, but they basically have one version of the software. And rolling out changes becomes low cost. So we can lower that price so that the cost of the SaaS is really more like what you would over 5 years is what you would pay up front. Because we've lowered our costs. It's much more economic for us. And then in terms of selling it, we talked about it here, talking about the benefits of things. If the features are attractive, and now as a software provider, we're more agile. We can make those features even better, and we can bring more features. So we're not having as many discussions about when am I going to get that feature? Do I have to do an upgrade? Lower cost for us to make new features, lower cost for you to receive them, and features turn into business benefits, operational benefits, lower costs. So making that connection that the whole system works better. So SaaS isn't just something we're layering in on top, we're actually making the whole system more healthy.
Lessons learned.
I have one thing.
Sure.
So, okay, so like one of the things I've heard you'll all say is like huge contracts, big customers, huge enterprise accounts, right? I think we haven't talked at all about smaller scale. So we haven't scaled at all. All we've talked about is, like you're talking about the property management companies that are worldwide that y'all have with massive school district and, on your side. So can we just touch a little bit on maybe the smaller regional things that contractors may come across and how that ties into SaaS? Because if I'm a contractor, I'm an SI, and I've got a bunch of little mom and pop shops, or I handle a small little healthcare space, it's a way different sale than if I'm talking to Amazon, or if I'm talking to, Facebook, right? Or a data center. It's a very different SaaS sale because a lot of these places they have no idea, right? These smaller churches, maybe someone's got a group of small churches.
So what's your value proposition to those smaller customers?
So value prop is like at that point, right? Sometimes that controls guy is the IT guy, is a little bit of everything. So back to that hosting conversation, back to like learning a little bit of everything. Now you become that MSI for them, but they're also they don't have those deep pockets, right? They don't have those IT budgets, or they don't understand that SaaS model is. So gauging the expectations and learning how to sell SaaS to different customers makes a huge difference. So in the sense where like, if you've got someone if you've got a bunch of small customers, then you can become that provider, right?
Yeah.
Because you're the one that can manage all that. Maybe you learn a little bit about networking, learning about the ports and all that stuff. But if you've got huge customers, they already have their IT groups, so you're working with those guys. So from a SaaS model, from learning to host and everything, it's just having that, learning the range, learning your customers, and then trying to figure out if like, okay, do we then invest as a systems integrator in hosting things ourselves because now we're becoming that partner for all these customers, or do we have to learn how to utilize their IT company? So you have to learn a little bit of everything depending on your specific customer base. And I don't want people the takeaway to be that now they have to go sell SaaS to all these small little customers that they have no idea what any of this means. They don't, they maybe have a couple of routers for internet there, but they're not ready for all of that. So it's a very different sale depending on who you're talking to, and not every customer is a huge multi-million-dollar customer.
Right. So it still goes back to being your customer's trusted advisor, right? And knowing your customer and doing your due diligence. So closing thoughts. We've got about 5 minutes, so I want to leave a couple minutes for questions. Closing thoughts. Let's start at the back.
I'm just super aware that the situations that SIs face are complicated and varied, well beyond, and regional and verticals and subverticals and organization structures, and then you put governments in there. So we're super sensitive to that. So I just want to say that when we are saying sell SaaS, we as the vendor are not saying we want to have you all ask us the same questions and have the same problems. We're absolutely willing to work with each and every customer to sort of figure out how does that best fit and try to support you during the sale, during the architecture, service, and support. So I just want to make sure you understand we're not trying to homogenize, and we understand that you have the expertise of your very specific opportunities.
That's great.
Biggest takeaway is that, again, from a manufacturer's perspective, we're trying to be the easy button, easy tool. But the more feedback you can give us and the more that you invite us in to learn more about your businesses, your regions and everything, the more that helps us build a better product for y'all. So please, always reach out, always give feedback, because that helps everyone build a better SaaS model, especially with tools when we're talking about recurring revenue.
Eddie?
I wanna double click on what Charles said, because I think you said it super well. You guys are the pros. I think my kind of last couple of words here would be that just pick the partners that are the most flexible for you. And the ones that are like have the flexibility and ability to address whatever type of client, whether it's a mom and pop or whatnot, and then just allows you to basically be like flexible within what you're trying to offer depending on your client base, and the ones that provide you the best service. If you're working with like Code Labs and Code Labs doesn't respond to you in a week, you probably shouldn't work with Code Labs. You should probably go work with somebody else that responds faster. Last thing I'll say is that we talked about Clockworks and Neve and Code Labs and whatnot. I think the single biggest, most important thing and responsibility that we all carry to our clients is not to solve an old problem with a new tech while still leaving them in silos, and then tomorrow something else comes. So I think it's on us to predict some of the things they're going to need and make sure that we're setting them up for success.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. To all the system integrators in the room, we will need to learn how to sell SaaS, right? And we're still figuring it out, and we've been doing it for a while, but this is where the industry is going. And so just need to embrace it, understand that it is a change, it is a different way of selling, it's a different way of talking to our clients, it's a different value proposition, and we need to embrace it.
So do we have any questions out there?
Comment based on her on the small people. I do exactly that model, small, regional. So what we do, there is a certain capital investment in IT engineers who know how to run that world. They're not guys, right? They speak different languages. So what I do is I buy the software services, multiple ones, package them in the group, and with smaller people, they only pay for what they use. So I reverse that model and do it myself. Because you take a standard SaaS package to a small client, you know, maybe a small building or below, they can't afford it. That's great. So what I do is I spread that cost around, and that helps gain more clients, and they all have portable to do, and I segment them out.
That's a great proposition.
That's good stuff.
That's literally what we want you guys to do.
Yep.
Scale.
Excellent.
Hi. I had two questions. So the first one is, I think Charles, you mentioned like the advent of vibe coding. How do you as a systems integrator think about balancing reselling like a Code Labs, for example, versus creating your own point solutions that you could package into one piece of software that you can get to the to the end customer, so they're not inundated with like several point solutions? And then the second question is like, in order to kind of transition selling into SaaS, would you recommend, systems integrators think about hiring from traditional tech sales roles? I only ask that because my girlfriend works in tech sales, so I don't know if that is something that you would recommend, given they have that, that skill set already.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Scott the second question. My answer to that one would be yes, but on the first one, I think it's important to watch professional cycling and realize that it's very hard to break away from the peloton. Does that anyone understand what I'm talking about? Which is that if the SaaS companies, once we are developing one code base and getting all the benefits, it's very hard for you to outrun us. And so you have to try to be careful not to build what you're already going to get. You have to select. But to the same point about bundling, to the extent you can integrate, and with vibe coding is getting easier than other, to create ways to make it easier to use multiple things or to tailor it to their particular situation, then that makes sense. But it's going to require constant diligence to try to figure out when am I creating a sort of a front door that's easier for the customer, and where am I trying to outrun the peloton? In the second case, you're going to lose every time. So.
Well,
Just to touch on that, just to touch on that, some of the manufacturers, right, there's a gajillion of them, but just realize that the manufacturers are taking on like that engineering risk, right? They're the ones that have the bigger engineering resources to build and support these products, whereas sometimes some systems integrators or some smaller outfits, yeah, maybe they can build something, but then you have to keep it up. And that's a lot of continuous like investment into that. So just like Charles said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can tweak it a little bit, but let the people with the heavy pockets like do the heavy lifting, right? That's because then you're going to be in the business of maintaining a software, and you're not going to be able to sell it, because then your sales have to be like so much higher than the investment of like maintaining that.
Yeah. So with that, let's give these guys a round of applause. Thank you very much, guys, for coming and participating. My only question is, are you guys ready to get sassy now? Yeah. I swear to God, my wife told me that one.
Hey, we got 15 minutes, and then we're going to be back here